Hello, everybody. My name is Dov Shamir. I'm the Manager of Entrepreneurship here at Mount Sinai Innovation Partners. Just kind of rules of engagement for today's webinar. We'll be recording this, just so you know, so you can, and we'll be distributing it after today's session. So if you want to review or look at the content again, you can do so and share with your friends as well. At the end of my short presentation, I'm more than happy to answer questions. I prefer if you use the chat function on Zoom to do so, just so we, minimize the amount of voice and feedback and all that goes into, talking remotely on the Zoom platform. With that, I'll begin. And again, thank you all for joining. So this year, for the second time, we're putting together this pitch challenge. It's comparable to a lot of other pitch challenges you may have seen within New York City, like NYU's pitch challenge, 300K pitch challenge, Columbia's venture challenge, all focused on creating startups, new technologies for all sorts of verticals. In this case, more specifically in the healthcare space, biotechnology, etc. And today I wanted to kind of give you a brief overview of what the programming looks like and how you can get involved, even if you're not part of the Mount Sinai Health System. So just a brief introduction about our group at MSIP. We are the commercialization office of the Mount Sinai Health System. That means we're at the intersection between the School of Medicine and the whole, all 8 hospitals, and that of the outside world. We help translate technologies, inventions, and discoveries from our institution into real-world healthcare applications that both can help our patients as well as society as a whole. 3 of the big functions of our office focus on technology acceleration, entrepreneurship, and startups. Just to give you a little bit of an example of some of the ventures that have come out of the Mount Sinai Health System, such as Semaphore, a genomics and diagnostics company, Renalytics AI that launched in 2018 with a $29 million raise off the London AIM, Hybercell, that is a cancer drug discovery platform company that raised a $60 million Series A last year, and Monogram, which is perfecting custom-made orthopedic implants using 3D imaging technology and robotics. That's currently raising its Series A, and they're about $4 million now for that round. In addition, we also focus on things like telemedicine, like Nines, that focuses on teleradiology, just closed a $16.5 million round as well. So you get an idea that we're definitely into creating ventures, creating startups, have decent raises once they're out of stealth, and we really do as a group we focus on every kind of technology that you could possibly think of, from digital health to traditional therapeutics to diagnostics devices, research reagents, really the full swath of technologies. Most of which, most of the ones you see here, handful in the therapeutic space, but mostly, as you can see, have some big data, AI, or tech component to them. So, those technologies were a little later stage by the time they went out of stealth and out into the venture creation mode. But we wanted to create more companies and technologies even from an earlier stage. So we created the Mount Sinai Innovation Partners Pitch Challenge program, which really does focus on early stage technologies. It could be from a concept to a very early prototype to start, and we help work with the inventors and the teams to basically push those technologies to late prototypes that could eventually become licensable, or technologies that could be spun out into their own separate companies. This program started in earnest probably around late August with an idea workshop that we put together, basically taking all the brain power within the institution and having PhDs, postdocs, clinicians, nurses, basically start thinking up of healthcare solutions in which they wanted to solve. About 10 of which went on to the next stage and actually started putting together prototypes, ideas that focus on anything from the oncology space, in the oncology space via software. We have a drone technology as well, some wound healing therapies. Basically, again, full spread of technology types, and a couple devices in the rehab space as well. These teams have been basically walked through the ideation and design thinking processes this fall, particularly with New York City Media Lab. And they also, some of them got to experience the Mount Sinai Hackathon as well. They also just, they went through a variety of other workshops as well in the design thinking space. They got some introduction to non-dilutive funding, and obviously they've been working with our business development teams, mentors, and other advisors that Mount Sinai Innovation Partners works with on a normal basis. So this week, actually, this Tuesday, we had a team mixer, which I think many of your colleagues probably attended, and I know they attended. And that was to basically complement or start augmenting the teams that were already created in the fall, and start filling in the gaps in where the technical or business talent needed to be met. Many of our initial founders have great technical expertise, but lack in the business expertise in other technical areas in which to make their technologies get to the minimum viable product. So actually next week, we're going to be having an innovation showcase where about 2 of them will be presenting, also for a small cash prize. And throughout the rest of the spring, we'll be having another poster competition by early March, March 3rd. We're going to be having a startup primer by a local law firm that will teach exactly how do you create a legal entity specifically out of a university-based system. We're going to be having a dilutive funding primer and panel, in which we're going to learn, this is more probably for the scientific community, but the basics of, startup financing. And we're going to have a panel at the end covering everything from angel investment, venture capital, and some of the startup banks, approaches to financing early stage companies. Lastly, and really with the, the finish of all of this programming for this spring will be the capstone event, the pitch challenge, which will also have a cash prize at the end. And that cash prize will be enough seed funding to basically provide the team with enough resources to get their late stage prototype to a minimum viable product. And that minimum viable product will be enough, hopefully, to actually find a licensee to the technology, or to actually begin the creation of the startup entity. In addition, like I mentioned before, all participating teams will get, basically the full support of our business development team, our office, advisors, and mentors, through office hours and basically any other mode of communication. The 2 main components of the teams here that are necessary to basically participate in this program, one, you have to have a core team member from Mount Sinai involved in your team, and 2, you have to disclose the technology to our office. In addition to these main events, we're also going to be having workshops in marketing, branding, and investor relations, as well as I-Core training in the lean startup methodology that Steve Blank created back out in Stanford. So here's a little bit of a breakdown on the exact dates of some of those events. And, again, actually the team mixer is wrong there. It shouldn't be April 5th. It was a little, it was obviously earlier, but the rest is basically true. February 12th, the showcase next week. March 3rd is the poster presentation. March 10th is the legal startup. We're actually going to have an IP primer also within March. So if you want to learn more about intellectual property, how does that work for a startup that's coming out of university, who owns what, how do things transfer, what are the minimum requirements you're going to need to get something patented, that will probably be most likely covered in that primer, in that seminar. I mentioned the dilutive funding primer and panel, and again, May 5th is really the big event, and we're going to have the whole ecosystem basically converge upon Mount Sinai on May 5th. They'll include the investor community, the entrepreneurial community, the other hospital systems, and basically every major component and industry partners that would be interested in these kinds of digital and device technologies. So just to give you an idea of some of the other startups that came out of last year's programming, a couple notable ones: Retina Technologies, that not only went through our programming, but went through New York City Media Lab. Mitral Print, that went through the Columbia Venture competition last year as well. And Metascribe, that went through eLab New York City's programming as well as ours. And each of those technologies are a little different. Retina Technologies focused on a VR headset in the ophthalmology space. Metascribe put together an application to decrease physician burnout. And Mitral Print was coming up with a device to better conduct certain kinds of cardiac surgeries, basically a quality control device. And each one of these, those companies I just mentioned really are a great example of, the great outcomes and successes that come out of this kinds of programming, all of which, got follow-on funding for their ideas to continue the research and development. They, again, got accepted into those high-profile incubator and accelerator programs, and they advanced to discussions with other industry partners for licensing opportunities. In addition to that, some of them also formed, formal companies and entities as well. Down below are some examples of, of teams in which that have moved on from our programming and into greater, both regional and national programming within, the greater ecosystem. With that, I'm happy to take any questions. And again, if you would like to apply to the program as a late decision applicant, indicating that basically you got to find a Mount Sinai individual to be on your team and disclose the idea to our office, more than happy to to speak with you. My email is dov.shamir@mssm.edu. And from there, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.